we were we were all just discussing how good Russ looks in blue, and his wife believes that's his color. I also have always I sit next to Russ a lot in the press box and always have found him to be quite fetching in blue.
Yes, but blue is reflective of his mood today because his team blew a chance to finish the series in New York and now has to go back to Los Angeles. But there's a reason to be reasonably confident with DeGrom on the mound, but Greinke is one of the best pitchers in the league, so it'll be.
Well, here's the thing. Here's my 1 minute analysis. Not even 1 minute. They set their rotation so DeGrom could be in that game. So I figured they were going to win in 5 anyhow. Kershaw was due to win a game. Like, we knew he was going to win a game. He won his game. And at the end of the day, Greinke wouldn't have won without the cheating Chase Utley. So there you go.
Meanwhile, in Boston, Ty has decided to don the hat of another team because since his team actually finally won a World Series after years and years and years, he's gone to the team that hasn't won in 104 years.
Ty broke the 86-year-old curse, and now he's hoping to break the 107-year-old curse. But the funny thing is, Zach, and it's gotten out there now, so it's very interesting. But
yeah,
the movie Back to the Future predicts that the Cubs would win the World Series in 2015.
I know.
Oh, we all had crazy predictions. I did it at least once or twice over the years and picked the date that I thought prospects would, come around. We've all done that.
Ty, so what's the deal with the Cubs hat? Sorry.
The Cubs hat. I mean, that's my team. I grew up in Boston. I'm a Cubs fan. I grew up.
Talk about like usually in Boston, people would go for like, okay, you could accept a Boston Red Sox fan going for a team that wins often, but man.
Who was your favorite Cubs player growing up?
It was Sosa, because I grew up during the home run race. I grew up with McGuire and Sosa, and I was like, all right, well.
God, that makes me feel old.
Ty really makes us feel old all the time, yeah.
He does.
Well, and then I grew up
Stanberg for a second.
No, I was in the when the Cubs had great pitching with Kerry Wood and Mark Pryor, and I even liked like Matt Clement. So it was funny, like that was always sort of I loved pitching, and Sosa was the guy I rooted for during the home run race. So that's kind of who I aligned with.
That's pretty. That's cool. And I always thought that was the coolest hat in baseball. I'm gonna throw that out there. I like the logo, the Cubs logo. I really do. I was also a big fan of the old old Braves hats too. But I like the Cubs C is like such a cool thing, in my opinion.
Being a Yankees fan, having a visceral hatred for the Red Sox just is.
Let's talk about this for a second, Mike, because you are a Yankees fan and you are a Leafs fan, and these are two of the biggest, most popular teams. And you're not like you. I would expect you, like if I was put a gun to my head, I would expect you to be a Cowboys fan, like you have, but you're not.
Because you're a front runner. You're picking teams that are easy to root for. I mean, the Leafs haven't been the last decade, but you know what?
In our lifetime, the Leafs haven't been very easy to root for, Russ.
Excuse me. I was a Yankees fan in 1976 when I was 9 years old.
But they already had like 20 championships at that point.
I was 9. I wasn't around for that.
But you knew they had it. The point is, you knew they had it. You saw pictures of Mickey Mantle and all that success, and you jumped the board.
You're a Chicago Bulls fan too, Mike, right? You're a Chicago Bulls fan too.
No. Okay, I'll be brief. I'm a Boston Celtics fan.
That would have been my next guess. See, that would have been my next guess. You're right there. You are totally, and yet through all of that, you managed to somehow be a Buffalo Bills fan.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I have to have some, hometown roots, and God knows that. When I was a kid, I liked the Sabres because they had the French connection. But then when I started to get older and wiser, I got rid of stupid, things to root for.
Except for Toronto, you still have managed to keep that stupid thing to root for.
Well, no. I mean, my brother was a Maple Leaf fan, and osmosis, I became a Maple Leaf fan. But what I was going to say is, as a Yankees fan, it's understandable to have the hatred of the Red Sox ingrained in your DNA. But I'm actually hoping and rooting for the Cubs. I would like to see them break that 107 year record of futility. It would be a nice story. And on top of the Marty McFly and Robert Zemeckis being right.
The curse of the goat. Yeah, it would go away.
And I think the person who would have the biggest relief would be Steve Bartman. They should have him throw out the first pitch.
No, they shouldn't. I'm telling you, fans wanted him to come back, and I'm like, keep him away, because that is my biggest pet peeve in sports. Don't ever interfere in the field of play. If somebody's going to make a play, you move away. Don't try and get the baseball. Don't try and grab a souvenir.
Don't run onto the field. Don't skate onto the ice.
Don't do any of those things. And you saw it happen. I mean, Bartman did that, and now nobody likes him. It's
he lives in complete seclusion.
He lives in complete seclusion.
Yeah, he's basically like old Ben Kenobi in Star Wars. Like between between 3 and 4, that's what Steve Bartman is right now. He's just hiding. He's hiding in Mos Eisley somewhere.
So years from now, he's going to appear as a ghost next to Obi-Wan Kenobi and.
What I'm saying is, if the Cubs, by some miracle, win the World Series, I hope that next April, when they have their home opener, that Bartman throws out the first pitch.
No, you don't want that.
And he throws it to a goat. No, I don't know. I mean, I just think that. I mean, did you see Stephen Colbert's thing with the Cubs? That was really good.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he was so funny because he lived in Chicago for 11 years with SCT, with Second City, right?
Right.
And he did this thing, the greatest of all time, and he puts GOAT across. He's like, whoa, no, wait, not that. No, he was very good. He threw a goat out of his audience, which is the whole myth, or not the myth. What happened is a guy brought his goat to the game back in the 1940s, and he got thrown out, and he yelled as he was being thrown out, because you disrespected my goat, the Cubs will never win the World Series. So that's that.
I'll root for them if the Mets are out, but if the Mets are in, I'll be rooting for like another black cat. It's just the way it is.
And for a city, what I thought about after that is I thought about, this is a city in Chicago that has had its trouble with livestock. Like, basically, this is a city where a cow started the big fire, right? Years ago, and a goat, and now a goat has cursed their team. So for a city, those are pretty rural animals to attack.
There's one thing Wrigley's been able to hold on to, though, for the entire run since 1908, and that's the smell of urine. Even under construction, they still have that.
You're in Chicago when you smell the urine.
The entire city of New York City in general just smells like urine. Every street smells like piss.
Yeah.
Not every street. Wow. I agree.
I mean, especially in parking garages. Okay, that's like the biggest. That's my biggest thing. Parking garages are absolutely gross, and it's true in Philly too. So I'm not going to throw that
all
out.
Cities are gross. That's the big takeaway from us.
That's what we should take from here. All cities are bad.
That's the thing. You don't go into a ballpark that generally still smells like that.
Nope. My goal was to when we went to cover the Winter Classic in Chicago, and that was really cool to do. Even though we were basically secluded to a press box the size of my living room.
I didn't even go there. I never went.
Yeah, no, I bought a ticket, and it was funny. I've done this at 2 Winter Classics now. I've gotten there. The press box was too small. This happened in Boston. This happened in Boston. It happened in Chicago.
Yep.
And I decided like because the Boston was a Flyers, so I took my family to Boston. So my family was sitting in the seats. So I said, you know what? And they were sitting in left field, in the bleachers in Fenway, and it was a really terrible seat for an outdoor game. So I twice now have left the press because I've told there's no room for you in the press box because there's only 10 people in there. I've left the press box, gone outside with my press pass hanging from my thing, bought a ticket from a scalper, came back into the building, found a seat, and they did that both in Chicago and Boston.
I stood in a million places. I did. I'll give you credit though to the Chicago fans. I was in between periods. I was going to the bathroom. Mike Milbury was right behind me. They booed Mike Milbury going into the bathroom.
Nice.
Like who gets booed in the bathroom? I mean,
there are some.
Everybody knows that Mike Milbury brings about those urges to go to the bathroom.
Well, yeah. Well, hold on now. We got boy. That's the title of today's show. Urine. No, but the
you're in the right place.
You're in the right place. Before we start, one of my favorite Winter Classic moments of all time happened in Boston, And this was when we completely, this was the Bruins and Flyers. They're a rivalry. I mean, the Flyers took a Stanley Cup from them back in the 70s, but it's not like this is and there are the Big Bad Bruins and the Flyers. They've always had a good rivalry. So it made sense, but it's not like they play all the time. It's not like a Patrick Division team or an Atlantic Division or whatever you want to call it, Metro Division or whatever we want to call it team. But there was a moment in the Flyers game when, now this is the same year that the Phillies were in the World Series, I believe, against the Yankees, right? Am I right about that? Yeah, that's the same year as the Winter Classic in Boston. So there was a moment during that game when because there were a lot of Flyers fans, there were a lot of Bruins fans. There was a moment in that game when the entire stadium, Flyers fans and Bruins fans alike, started chanting "Yankees suck." That was the moment. That was a real heartfelt moment. But two cities coming together for a common good. So.
There was also a moment, too, that was sort of like a behind-the-scenes moment where this is where Jeff Carter really started to be hated by the media because we all come to the locker room, and it's not close, right? I mean, you have to, it was like a half-mile hike. We get there, and Carter says the locker room's closed. So we all leave. Everybody's leaving, and then the PR starts yelling, no, we're open. And Carter's smiling. Meanwhile, people left. Like, they just absolutely left. And it took us like 10, 15 minutes to get down to the locker room. At least that, right? I mean, it was a long.
Oh yeah, no, I remember that. Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, that was crazy.
Sitting there smiling like ha ha ha.
Yeah, that's one of the moments.
That's one of the moments.
Hello, Hockey World. It's Thursday. It's Wednesday, October 14th, 2015.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Ty Anderson.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, you can't do that.
From Sportsology.
And I am Eklund, and the rule is Mike first, then age order. And you're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you Monday through Friday from this very place to bring you the hockey news. And sorry, if I'm dressed nicely today, it's because I am leaving right from here to catch my daughter's soccer game. I'm leaving right from there to go catch the Flyers play the Blackhawks. Which is going to be a fun, as we preview the 2010 Stanley Cup Final. But yeah. So anyway, I'm gonna be heading down there. Chemo Timonen night tonight, so that's kind of cool. I wouldn't miss that. Chemo. Very few people were any nicer to me in my life as far as hockey players go than Chemo Timonen. So true. Oh yeah. I mean, he's just, Timonen is as cool and as real as Teemu Selanne is. And I don't know if I've ever told my Timonen story, but I want to tell it real fast here. I probably have, but if I have, just ignore it. Or go watch, I don't know, Wisniewski's podcast or something like that. But okay, so on the it was 2 summers ago, and I was at Great Adventure, and I was there with my daughter who had just gotten had surgery on 2 of her teeth, and she was in agony. We took her there, and she was miserable, and I did the stupid, really elitist thing of buying what they call a fast pass because I didn't want my daughter standing in the sun for 200, in 200 degree with all this pain. So I said, okay, when you buy a fast pass, that basically tells everybody else that you're better than them and you get to go ahead of them in line. So I got that fast pass, but in order to get a fast pass at Great Adventure, you have to watch a movie. They send you into this dark room and you watch a movie about what a fast pass means. It doesn't mean you can just rob or steal or anything like that. It just means that you go to the front of the line at rides, right? So I'm in the fast pass thing, and as I'm standing there, the movie ends, the lights come up, and there's only me and my daughter and this other guy and his daughter in there, and it's Chemo Timonen and his daughter. We're watching the Fast Pass movie together in Great Adventure. And he turns to me and he's like, hey, I'm like, whoa, I didn't even recognize. I mean, Chemo, just thinking about Timonen is he doesn't look like a hockey player away from the rink at all. He's not a big guy. He doesn't look like he's incredibly in shape. But he looks like a normal guy. So there was Chemo Timonen sitting in line, watching the Fast Pass movie with me. And we got to talking, and then we spent a lot of the day together in different times. We went to my son loves to try to win prizes at games of chance, by throwing balls onto things or trying to throw hoops onto 2-liter cans, bottles. And so Chemo and his daughter and my son and I, we had a fun time. It was a really fun day. It was just completely, unplanned. And Chemo's always been that way. He's just real. He's an absolutely real person. You can just hang out with him. You don't feel like you're hanging out with a star. You don't feel that he doesn't look like he's a star. I introduced my family to him. They all loved it. It's really cool. So I'm looking forward to that tonight. That's Chemo Team tonight. So if you didn't check the beginning of the show, we had our discussion as to the teams we followed when we were little, or in Ty's terms, 5 years ago. Yeah. But I wanted to get in today. I wanted to get into a little bit of what we did on Monday, but I wanted to get into more specifically the idea of pretenders versus contenders. Okay, and I did a blog today about my San Jose Sharks, who.
Your San Jose Sharks.
Yes, my San Jose Sharks, who we remember I picked, and to the scoffs of everyone on this panel, to win the Pacific Division, and now I want to know that they have played a team that won the Stanley Cup twice in the last 4 years, and the two teams voted most likely to succeed by almost every pundit in the planet in the Anaheim Ducks and the Washington Capitals, and they've beaten them all, and they've scored 12 goals, and they've given up 1.
Yeah, well, I mean, unless Patrick Marleau snuck into Alex Ovechkin's apartment and changed the alarm from AM to PM.
It's a 5-0 victory. It doesn't have anything to do with that.
Not having Alex Ovechkin in the lineup doesn't have anything to do with...
Unless Alex is going to score 5 goals or 6 to get the win.
I have to agree with that. I mean, hockey's a team game. Yes, Ovechkin makes a difference, but no, that's a good win. It is.
And it's a good team, and they've played.
This isn't the Capitals teams from 5 years ago where it's Ovechkin and nobody else.
Right.
This is a good team, and they really have. Mike,
I don't see any reason to change my opinion based on 3 games. Yes, they've had a good start to the season, but until we're like halfway through the year, I still believe that core group in San Jose is going to find some way to be dysfunctional like they've been the last few years. I mean, Peter DeBoer is a very good coach, but that group in San Jose has always proved to underwhelm, and I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Maybe the changes of Joel Ward coming there, of Martin Jones and Paul Martin, maybe they make a bit of a difference. Maybe they sneak into the playoffs, but until they prove me differently, that's the same old Sharks. Let
me tell you why you're wrong.
I'm used to that.
I'd like to agree with you, but then we'd both be wrong, as I like to say. In this case, I mean, I agree with you on, Thornton and Marleau have definitely had their share of disappointments in May and June. Okay, there's no question. We're probably never seen June in May. So, that's for sure. But this is not beyond those two guys. This is not that team. These are different players, and Pavelski and Logan Couture, they've had issues too, but they had issues when they were really young. I mean, those two are coming into their own. The younger players, they have nothing to do with that group. Brent Burns has nothing to do with that group. Martin Jones, and this is a new coach. So this team has nothing to do with, besides the fact that they wear a man-eating predator on their jersey, has nothing in comparison to that other Sharks team. I mean, I think this is just a Sharks team that has a good blend. Russ?
I've seen Patrick Marleau go 20 games without a goal. I've seen teams and players trying to count on him and Thornton at times, and they don't come through. Pavelski's always come through. I love Couture.
So do I.
They might be a little better than I thought because Jones is playing well right now, but let's see about the ups and downs of a full season for Jones. Oh, yeah. I'm not buying yet on San Jose. I'm not.
And Brent Burns has been there. He's entering his 5th year in San Jose. To sort of say he's not part of that, part of this, he is. I mean,
no, but they always were screwing with him. I mean, they were putting him up on offense, and putting him back in defense.
Honestly, I think he's a better forward than he is a defenseman.
No. He's found his spot. This is where he should play. This is where Team Canada played him. This is where he should play. This is his spot, and there's no question in my mind that that he's dynamic. I mean, he's got Dustin Byfuglien-esque type traits for sure, but he's a better, I don't want to say a better athlete, but more apt to go further than Dustin Byfuglien in a lot of ways. I mean, I think that's how good I think he is, and I think Dustin Byfuglien's a top 5 D man in the league. So Burns could be on, he could be in the running for a Norris Trophy here. I mean, we're not talking, and I'm not just joking.
Let's not go there.
I put guys like Byfuglien and Burns in a separate category. They're offensemen. They're rovers. They're not, They're not guys who I think are going to be candidates for the Norris, because the Norris, you have to play at both ends of the ice. That's Doughty, that's Weber, that's not Bufflin, and that's not Burns. If they have a separate trophy, if they have a Bobby Orr trophy, then I think they're leading candidates. But until they round out their game, they're not.
When is being rounded? When was the last well-rounded Norris Trophy winner?
Nicholas Lidstrom.
Okay. Okay. Both good points, but still, most of them are not. I mean, most of the people that are talked about in the Norris contention are not. Like we talked about, the idea of defensive hockey players having value has really gone out the window.
Well, I don't think Eric. See, that's the thing. And Erik Karlsson has won the Norris twice, and I don't think Erik Karlsson should have won the Norris, because I don't think he's a good defensive defenseman. He's an incredible puck carrier. He's offensively very creative. PK Subban is the same way. My personal belief is those defensemen are not the type of defenseman who should win the Norris. There should be a separate trophy.
I disagree. I think they're good enough defensively. I do. I think they get maligned for being offensive. Now, if someone like Keith Yandel won the Norris, then I would say you're right, because I think he more fits that bill.
Ty?
I think Erik Karlsson's deserved the Norris both times he's won it, personally. So that's kind of where I sit on it. Like, we can debate this all day as to what like the true meaning of the Norris Trophy should be, and what defenseman should win that. Because if we do it by the letter of the law, guys like Francois Beauchemin and the perfect even defenseman, should have won a Norris by now, and that's not the case. So, but when it comes to the San Jose Sharks, if you got hot goaltending, it can take you a very, very long way. That's what I learned in 2010 with Tim Thomas and the Boston Bruins.
Yeah.
And Thomas had a start very similar to Jones' start this year. Obviously, Thomas kept it up all the way through June last year, or June of that year. But if you can find a goaltender that can post a .930, for a very long time here, and that's if you can line himself up for that, that puts the Sharks in prime contention in this division.
See, this is the thing about goalies. When they get on this roll, it can all fall apart in a 5. He gives up 5 goals in a period. I mean that happens, right? But 3 goals in a period or whatever. But these guys tend to goalie, and I'm not going to say Martin Jones, but I don't even think Martin Jones has to be this spectacular. They are a +11 in goal differential 3 games in the season. I don't know if that's ever happened in the NHL.
Oh, I'm sure it has. No, I would think that that's happened.
Yeah.
I was looking for it in the last in several years, and I couldn't find it. I mean, it's possible.
You look at San Jose. I mean, this is a team that there's too much skill for what happened last year to be who they are. Like, people rail on Joe Thornton. He is still, I think, an elite playmaker in this league.
Totally.
I still think that he is.
But is he consistent, Ty? Is he consistent?
I think he has been. Last year was sort of a blip on the radar there.
See, that pause and the fact that you say he has been, it's not like I say, hey, and I give you another guy like is Steve Stamkos consistent. And you'll say, yeah, except for the playoffs. Last year was the first time maybe he wasn't. But
let's say Thornton struggles. They still have Pavelski, Couture, Marlowe, and guys like Nieto are coming into their own as well.
Correct.
Marlowe struggles greatly. He's hot and cold. He is.
But they don't have to. I mean, they're getting paid a lot of money, but they don't have to be those players on this team. I mean, they really, when it all comes down to it, they are the elder statesmen. They're the mentors of this team, and they have to. I mean, and both of them have played in a lot of. I mean, Marlowe's won gold medals. I mean, these situations, they have won at different levels. They haven't won with the Sharks. I just think that this is a good team.
I got a pretender for you, even though we don't expect the team to be a Stanley Cup team. I watched the Edmonton Oilers yesterday to really sort of break them down, right? And the takeaway was the Eric Greba-Davison combination on defense is the worst in hockey. It's an AHL pairing. And the fact that they went into the season with that thinking they can do anything as a team is abominable, because Dallas exploited that at every turn yesterday. Greba had 2 or 3 penalties. They gave up 2 or 3 goals on that pairing. It was awful. And Connor McDavid really did have a good game. I mean, he was near the net. He was doing things. But they would have to score 5 goals a game to win. I mean, Nielsen saved 50 or more shots yesterday. He had like 48, 50 saves. and it didn't matter. They were just getting pummeled, and so.
Oh yeah.
Edmonton's a lottery pick again. There's no way around it.
I think they are too. So quickly, Mike, you think Sharks are a pretender then, right? Russ has them a pretender.
Pretender.
Ty and I have Mick as a contender, I guess. So.
And Russ, I mean, it's baffling, and I realize that Peter Chiarelli has only been there for a few months, and it's going to be a long process. But it's baffling how somebody as good of a general manager as Chiarelli is didn't recognize that team's defense is pathetic. And with the fact that they sent Darnell Nurse down to the minors, and maybe that was a good thing because he's a young guy and you don't want to expose him. They sent Nikitin down because of salary cap reasons and because he's just not that good.
Yeah.
I mean, they should have. I mean, he should have recognized that. I think anybody who looks at the Edmonton Oilers has to recognize you're top heavy in forwards, you're lacking in defense. So make a deal. There are teams out there that need scoring. And Eck and I and you and Kevin have talked all summer about Edmonton and Nashville, Edmonton and other teams. It makes all the sense in the world. But for some reason, they're holding on to those forward pieces like they're gold bars, and they don't want to give them up.
I know why they are. I mean, and what it is and I'm gonna not ripping Canadians here, but it's the Canadian fans' love affair of top draft picks that is really that they are afraid. They are so afraid of moving one of those guys because they made such a big deal about getting them.
And no matter trade Eberle because Eberle wasn't a top 5 pick. If you want to
and Eberle's probably the one guy they shouldn't trade. Like in my mind, like I would trade Yakupov or Nugent Hopkins before I would trade Eberle, but they do have to trade one of them. I agree. They have to move one of them. I just think whether they have to do that right now or not is, I guess, debatable, or how good they can be. I mean, can they do anything? If they trade one of them now for a defenseman, is that going to mean that they're going to make the playoffs? I don't think it is. I mean,
it just gets them a step closer to being respectable. Yeah. So maybe they don't want to be respectable again. Maybe they want to be a lottery team again. I don't know.
See, I think the fan base in Edmonton and the fan base in Buffalo are at the same point right now. After years and years of these teams being hideous, they want a reason to hope. And these teams cannot go out there another year and have their fan base be abused by watching bad hockey. I think it's incumbent upon Chiarelli, and I think it's also incumbent upon Tim Murray, and that's one of the reasons why Tim Murray went out late last season, made the deal for Evander Kane, who would be back next year, made the trade for Ryan O'Reilly, had a support structure around Jack Eichel, so it wasn't all or nothing based on what Jack Eichel was doing. Right. In Edmonton, you've got players like Hall and Eberle and Yakupov who have been around a few years to provide a little bit of support to Connor McDavid. Eberle's hurt right now, but the defense was not improved at all. Eric Gryba is not an answer.
You look across the ice, and I thought, hey, Johnny Oduya, he would have been great for Edmonton.
Yeah, he would have been great for Edmonton, definitely.
Well, here's one thing I can tell you about the Oilers and about Chiarelli, is that for as many big trades as Peter Chiarelli has made in his GM career, they almost never come during the season. I think that's a huge thing to consider when it comes to the Oilers and trading one of the young pieces for defensive help. He never makes a big move in season. His home runs always come in the summertime.
Yeah.
The only big move I ever remember him making at the deadline was the Caberlet deal, and in a way that was a big failure because Caberlet didn't do it when they needed him to do it.
Yeah, but he did play minutes in the Cup. He did, and he had some value in the Cup for them. He did.
I thought the Jágr pickup was one of his better moves, honestly, at that time, because Jágr was really good in the playoffs. I mean, even though he didn't necessarily put up the numbers, he could have. We were inches away from Jágr being such a hero of those playoffs on so many occasions. How many posts did Jágr hit in the finals in that year? It was just unbelievable.
It honestly must have been like 7. And he even without scoring a goal in the playoffs, he still finished I think 5th or 6th among Bruins players in points for the playoffs.
Yeah. I'll give you a contender.
Go ahead.
How about the Vancouver Canucks, who are 3-0-1 right now? And I thought that team was going to shrivel up and die, but right now they've gotten off to a good start. I still think eventually, the age is going to show. But yeah, I mean, right now they're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
I think contender. Go ahead, Eck. I'll let you go first.
I think pretender. Just in terms of this, I think they're a good team. I think they're going to be a good team. But it's not the first time we've seen a really young team band together and start off the season really well. This is something that does happen. And it's kind of what's happening in Arizona too. Where you get this just this youthful thing that they will go for a while, but it is such a long NHL season. It is mentally so much harder than it is physically on these guys, I think, and it's just keeping that energy level and that at that same height for the entire season. I don't think it's possible. I think that they could battle for the playoffs, but I don't think they're a contender. I wouldn't say they're a contender, right?
I think they're going to battle for the playoffs, and I think they'll make it. I really do. I have thought that. We had Jim Benning on our XM show last week, and it's funny because we reviewed the draft with Virtanen and Jared McCann, and I had Virtanen ranked 9th best in the draft, and they got him, and then I had McCann ranked 10th best guy, and they got him 24th.
Yeah.
They're both in the lineup right now. That draft is making all the difference into this resurgence because Ryan Miller was there last year, but what Virtanen adds that most rookies don't, if you go and see, he has had some punishing checks on the opposition already, like especially in the offensive zone where he's knocking pucks loose. That's a big deal.
Yeah,
I have to watch him. I haven't seen him play yet.
Yeah.
Ty?
Well, he just got out there because he had that injury, but I'm telling you, his first game he was knocking guys around.
And they have a guy like Horvat.
Right.
He's in his second. I'm gonna love him.
Yeah, Horvat's in his second year, and he's another greasy player. That draft, Benning and his scouts did a great job because that's the only reason they're contending now. If they didn't get those two guys, they wouldn't be. And so sometimes you have to really be a shark in the draft to do that, but I think they're a contender.
Well, what I'm struck by right now.
I'll look at it.
Okay. What I'm struck by right now. Ty, why don't you try logging off too? Because I'm still getting. Russ, what I'm struck by right now is the fact that you've got half the Metro Division that's 0-3.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, and still a lot of teams without points. I mean, it is a little crazy. The Metro, well, we expected the Devils to be bad, so I don't think that's a surprise.
But yeah.
But, it's a tough division. It's the best goalie division. X said it. He was right. It really is the best goalie division. There is no night off for the opposition.
Right, but you would expect. I mean, and maybe it's the fact that Carolina hasn't played New Jersey yet, or they're all facing difficult foes right off the beginning. But New Jersey and Carolina, we expected to struggle. I didn't expect the Pittsburgh Penguins to have 3 goals in 3 games, or Columbus. I mean, I was looking at the Maple Leaf schedule for the upcoming week because they've had a 5-day layoff in between the beginning of the season and the weekend.
Right.
And Columbus and Pittsburgh are both 0-3. They both play Ottawa during the week, but then they both play Toronto in back-to-back nights. And I'm like, people in Toronto will say, "Oh, okay, that's a good thing because they're playing teams that are having trouble." Well, no, I'm looking at it like. Toronto is, I think, one of the worst teams in the league this year, and this is probably the one thing that will help Columbus or Pittsburgh turn it around. They're playing a team like Toronto coming in who's struggling. So, but it's just strange.
It is true.
You know what an offensive killer it is, though, in the NHL when your defense gives up chances, can't move the puck well, that kills any offense. And other than Chris Letang, they don't have anybody. And that is killing that team because that does kill a lot of potential offense, and then you're killing off penalties and all that other stuff.
No, you're dead right. And you know what it is? You know what I always thought it is to teams that are aggressive in scoring and have good forechecks and good cycles and keep the puck in the other zone. They do that by giving that extra little bit of something that comes with confidence in your defense and your goalie.
Yep.
When you don't have the confidence in your defense or goalie, you're afraid to take that to stretch your stick a little bit further, to go a little bit, to try to take a chance, to risk something. And when you're not risking things in the NHL, you're not winning. I mean, you have to risk things in the NHL. You just simply, or else you will not score goals. Their teams are good. Teams are too good. You have to do something beyond the norm. And when you're struggling defensively, you're gonna be below the norm and go the opposite direction. To me. That's my opinion on that. But let's talk about Montreal for a second.
Okay.
The Canadiens are 4-0. Now, there's something that's really kind of interesting about this team is that, they've only been 4-0 4 times in their history. I thought that was pretty astonishing. Team that's won 27 Stanley Cups, 26 Stanley Cups, has only been 4-0 4 times in their history, and of course, all 4 times they've won the Stanley Cup, that they've been 4-0. So this is the year that stops. But let's but just kidding. It could. Ty, contenders, pretenders, Montreal.
Contenders.
Yeah.
When you have a goaltender like Carey Price, and when your offense is clicking the way it appears to be clicking right now, this isn't a team that I don't think they have to win games 2-1 anymore. Obviously, we have to have a bigger sample size, of course. But Galchenyuk, Eller, Galchenyuk, and Semin line looks really good right now. And you know what you're going to get from Max Pacioretty. David Desharnais is in a role that suits him a bit more, I would say, in the third line. So I think that this team is a contender. They are the second best team in the Atlantic behind Tampa Bay, and that I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, I think. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say I think contender with a caveat, and that's the fact that I'm not sold on their offense. They're a contender based on Carey Price, based on their core group of Subban and Pacioretty. I agree with what Ty says. And if we go at the halfway mark of the season and they're still scoring at the pace that they're scoring right now, then I might be a believer. But I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to probably end up winning a sizable chunk of their games based on the back of Carey Price. And that Marc Bergevin at the deadline is going to have to go out and make a deal to add some offensive firepower. And if he doesn't, they will lose in the second round like they've done. Like they did that past season. They lost in the conference final a couple years ago, but I don't think that they'll get to the Stanley Cup final and be a true contender unless they add a difference-making offensive player before the deadline.
Well, again, I think what X said earlier about having faith in your defense and goaltending is providing extra offense for that team because they have that faith. And so that's a big thing. Fleischmann was a huge pickup. I thought that. I think that still. That was a huge pickup for them because he is a guy that fits right in there. He's already gotten on the board points-wise, and so he's right in the mix there, and I think that was important. I think, we don't want to ever talk about Semin, but I think Ty is right, and that is clicking, and I kind of knew Galchenyuk would be fine, and I think Bergevin, like I said, knew Galchenyuk would be fine too. He was just prodding him a little bit in the press. That's all he was doing to sort of get the motor going, but he knew what he had in him. I never believed anything Bergevin said that was negative with Galchenyuk. And Price is Price. Right now this year, Lundqvist looks like the best goalie. Price looks like the second best goalie. Is that big? Is that a huge surprise?
Yeah, and the key was that they got Fleischmann for nothing. They got him on a PPO, and they signed him to a one-year, one-way contract. They didn't have to give up any prospects for him. But Russ, they do have prospects that other teams would want, and I think that if Bergevin is of the same mind as I am, that they need that one piece, they can go out and trade a Nathan Beaulieu or a Jared Tenorti or a Yaka Delarose or somebody like that to get a player who could put him over the top. I think they're close enough. They're close enough right now that they can do that and not hurt themselves in the long term.
I think Below would hurt them too much. He's gotten too good at what he's doing right now and has fit in really well. I don't think they could trade Below, but I think they could trade Delarose. I think that would be a good piece for them to trade.
Right.
Now, the Rangers have given up 10 goals and scored 13 in 4 games, but like you said, Lundqvist has been really good. Despite the fact that, there's a lot of teams that have just given up very few goals. There's some teams that have really shut it down early here. But the +3 differential for the Rangers after 4 games is kind of low for a team for them.
Low. That yesterday was a horrible game in the sense that Lundqvist played great, and his team didn't back him up. And I'll give you a couple examples. There were some things that happened in that game. Derek Brassard, who I thought maybe could play the number 1 center. They don't have a number 1 center, right? So it's him or Stepan, and because of the size, I thought maybe Brassard. But a typical Brassard move yesterday where he's in the defensive zone, he loses a face-off, he's standing around waiting for the puck to come to him on the power play, and Little just gets it, moves in, Stahl moves in to get him, he sits around watching.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. He sits around watching, and it's a goal, and Little puts it in. Dan Girardi kept one off the board with a block and then sealed the fate of the Rangers with a screen trying to block it and was just too slow. And my feeling is when you've got guys that you've locked up like Stahl and Girardi and they have slowed down a bit, you have to decide whether you really want them to still shot block at the pace that they're shot blocking at. Because I think now it's become a detriment. You've got a goalie that can stop just about everything. You shouldn't be trying to shot block everything under the sun, and I think that's a problem. And I think that was a big problem for Lundqvist yesterday too.
Do you imagine the pain Girardi's going to be when he's like 50 years old, hanging out on the beach? I mean, he's going to. I mean, looking at him, he's just going to be miserable. I mean, he's taking so many shots.
Those type of defensemen fall off very quickly. I remember Jay McKee in Buffalo, who was a very, very good defensive defenseman, was a key part of the two teams that went to conference finals. He went free agent. I think it was to St. Louis.
Yeah, that was
he dropped off the planet because he had taken so many shots. It slowed him down so much that he just became an immovable object. And
I know Jay pretty well. He's one of my friends, and I'm going to defend that a little bit from what you're saying. When I went, just in this situation, I do agree that these defensemen fall off quickly. I do, but in Jay's situation, what happened was he signed too much. He signed for too much money with a team, and he tried to do too much. It's hard for a shot blocker in that era. Like in this era, perhaps a shot blocker, like for example, an Andy McDonald, a shot blocker can get a lot of money. And be okay with it, but when McKee, he wanted to suddenly start, felt like he had to do more, and his personality was such. I think that messed him up, in St. Louis. But I agree that they do fall off quickly. Yeah. There's no question about it. Let's talk about the Kings, who are, as we talked about before. I mean, I don't know what the difference is. Disaster or I don't know, something else. Disaster or I'll think of it. But they are right now. They are. As I said, it's rare this time of year to see double digits plus or minus in the goal differentials at all. The Kings are minus 10 right now. They've scored 2 goals and given up 12 in 3 games. Have looked absolutely horrendous in all their games and have really shown very little oomph at all. I said before the season that there were no coaches would be fired, and I still kind of believe that this year. And I know that's ridiculous because no one buys that. But when I went through this is the team I went through, and I'm like, okay, well, what if the Kings fell apart? Well, I think Sutter will just leave. I don't think he will get fired. I think he would just leave. He would step down and give it to John Stevens, where he would go upstairs and take it. He's not going to get fired. I still don't think any coaches are going to get fired. But this is a situation that if it was anybody else, any other coach in the world right now, they would be in trouble.
I'll fix your caveat though. If Pittsburgh doesn't score soon, Johnston will be out of there.
Or if Columbus continues their bad streak, Todd Richards is in trouble.
Yep.
Maybe Cookline. I don't know. Cookline and I wouldn't see getting rid of Richards yet because Richards has gone through so much with them to this point. But perhaps I think Johnson is a possibility. That's the one I would say. I would say it's the best possibility. Others could possibly just stop. But yeah, I think that's a real issue.
But I mean, with the Kings, they're not scoring. They're not playing good defense. Jonathan Quick has looked. I mean, I've heard a couple people over the last couple of days say, well, Jonathan Quick spent the entire summer. He lost 20 to 25 pounds and he's in the best shape of his career. And I'm like, okay, that's great, but if you can't stop the puck, I mean, what? Maybe you should have kept the fat, and that stopped pucks for you. I don't know. I mean, he doesn't look like the same goaltender. Now, it's 3 games and you can't draw major conclusions, but right now that team looks pretty ugly. And I know that some people are saying, well, they need to change some things. Change the aura of that team. Get the Kopitar contract situation. Get that signed, provide a little bit of good news.
That's close, according to what I've heard.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think the Kopitar contract situation is a pall hanging over the organization.
Oh, I think it is. I think it is, Mike, because I think they've got, like I've said before, I think they've got to sign him before they get really bad. Like, I think that the problem is that Kopitar is not going to want to stick around. They have, if they go through the whole season and they're worse than the team, I mean, one of the worst teams in the NHL. But how weird would it be if this is where, the lottery first round pick overall goes to? I mean,
I don't think
this is the team that's not.
It could happen.
Yeah.
I still think
not
they're
that far.
But I think what you said about Sutter is a fair point. I want to give you a quote that Sutter said. Well, it's not a quote, but going into yesterday's game, he called on his top players to lead them out of the dark. Now, we all have been very amused no, but listen, we've all been very amused with him over the years with his Zen-like approach and everything else. But when you can't score and you're not winning, that's not a real good strategy to tell the media, because like a fifth grade kid could tell you that, right? I mean, obviously that's what you would hope. So you would hope that there's more going on behind the scenes, but if there really isn't, they've got a problem, right?
Right, and that statement is tantamount to putting more pressure on your leaders.
Right.
You know, they need to carry us out of the dark. Okay, that means it's not my fault; it's their fault. So they need to step it up. And yeah, you're going to lose support from that team, from that core group. Yeah, I mean, obviously you need Kopitar, you need Doughty, you need Carter, and those guys to step
a lot
up.
of guys.
But
Milan Lucic, anybody remember him?
Yeah, right.
This team. Well, before I jump in, Jonathan Quick, losing weight is overrated, man. Tim Thomas would eat Burger King for lunch every day before a start, so put on the pounds, man. You got it. But talking about the Kings, this team just looks slow. They look really slow. They look slow skating. They look slow reacting to plays around the net, and they're still trying to win games by putting 16 shots on net, which it's not going to work anymore. It worked when you had elite goaltending and elite defense and everything was clicking. But when it's not clicking, you can't win when you're midway through a game with the Vancouver Canucks, who do not have a great defense, I would say. And it's midway through the game, you have 6 shots on net.
Yeah, they scored 15 shots yesterday. 15 shots.
Like well, is this a symptom of, you've got two organizations who have made numerous deep runs in the postseason over the last 4 or 5 years, LA and Boston, and both of them are having similar problems. Their veterans are slowing down. Is it a symptom of lengthy playoff runs? Playing with injuries, all the factors that go with what you have to do to win a Stanley Cup is what they're going through now.
Dustin Brown is definitely a symptom of that. Like the contract of Dustin Brown. There are certain things like that, but there's a lot more players on the Kings that they haven't really signed the big contracts yet. They're not in that same boat. Like Carolina fell apart because of this after winning a cup. Tampa had trouble after winning a cup.
Right.
I agree with you on that, but I think LA is all about emotion. I mean, this team wins or loses on emotion. They are skilled, but they've never been incredibly skilled. Even when they're winning, and the reason that they've struggled in the regular season is because of a lack of emotion, right? So now, 3 games into the season, all this stuff that's going on behind the scenes, I really think is affecting them. I think this is an emotion. This is a team that has lost its emotion, and they're bored. They look like they're bored to me when they're playing hockey.
I don't know if they're bored, but you said the worst quote that you could ever hear in sports, and that is when a player comes out and says, "I'm in the best shape of my career," that usually means they're an aging player and people are starting to to them. I'm telling you, you go throughout every sport, go look at how many guys have said, "I'm in the best shape of my career," and then went on to have bad years. It's never a good thing when a guy says that, because usually when a guy says that, he's in the middle of his career. That's funny.
Yeah, and
this picture always gets me because as much as I like Sutter, and I'll miss him if he isn't in the coach anymore, he really always did make you feel like you were watching, like there was somebody holding their hand and manipulating him as a puppet, and in just a funny way. So I love this picture they put together. Anyway.
And it's funny, Russ, because Doughty apparently got into really good shape this year, lost like 20 pounds.
Right.
He's 25 years old. He was in the same draft as Stamkos.
Right.
He's not over the hill. He's just entering the prime of his career. And if we're saying that that Drew Doughty,
but he didn't come out and say what Quick said. There's a difference. It's a mindset difference. Quick feels like he has to say that because he's not performing up to the same capability anymore.
Yeah, and they do have young players. You do have the Toffolis, you do have the Pearsons. You have players who should be, if there are players that are falling down or have left the organization like Justin Williams has, they should be picking up the slack. And so far, I don't see that happening. So I mean, this is reason for concern in Los Angeles, definitely.
The only old guy in sports that doesn't come out and say I'm in the best shape of my career is Bartolo Colon.
Nicely played. Yeah, well, I mean, I heard rumors, and I wrote about it a couple days ago, that the Kings and Islanders had discussions about trades, and that they had gotten pretty intense. although it wasn't this, the couple names were mentioned to me off the record, it wasn't this name that was mentioned to me, but if there's a place that Jonathan Quick could work, if you're going to at some point going to have to move Jonathan Quick, I believe, because Jonathan Quick is the kind of goalie who is not good on a team like this. This is not going to work for him, and it's not going to work for the Kings. Like it's a shame they kind of had to move Martin Jones, unfortunately, and they got put into a spot. But yeah, I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but I think that at some point Jonathan Quick's going to have to go.
I would have thought that the odds would have been better of a quick move if they had Martin Jones still, because they would have the ready-made replacement right there. I mean, right now, Jonas Enroth is their backup, and Russ, I don't remember them having a gilt-edged prospect in Manchester or in the pipeline. So
what about Quick for Halak? And I'm throwing that out there just for the heck of it. It's a straight, because I think both goalies might be better suited for the opposite situation.
I think that makes no sense for.
I think we get killed if they made that deal. They would just get killed.
Yeah, I mean,
who would get killed?
The Kings would get killed by making that deal. They would.
They'd have to get some. They'd have to get more. They'd have to get a prospect. I mean, Quick's
the only way that a deal like that makes sense is if the Islanders are throwing back a legitimate top prospect like a.
Oh yeah, no, there has to be more to it. I'm just saying that they're going to have, the Kings are going to have to get a goalie back, and I'm trying to think in terms of that. They're going to have to get a goalie back if they trade Quick.
Like Ryan Kulak back in order to make that even worthwhile.
I wouldn't even say Pulak. I would say Del Cole. It would have to be their best prospect, because the difference between Halak and Quick, even if Quick has had a bad start, but he's still one of the top goaltenders in the league in spite of the bad start. I mean,
haven't drafted a good goalie. The Kings are really. They're slight on goalies in their system. That's a big weakness.
Yeah.
And this is an organization that a few years ago had, after they picked up Scrivens, they had Scrivens, Martin Jones, and Quick, and now all of a sudden it's just Quick. So that's a dramatic fall in a couple of years. I mean, to me, the player they maybe need to get rid of is Dustin Brown, and I know he's a leader on that team, but in terms of production versus bang for buck,
but that's impossible.
Well, I don't know if it's impossible.
I think it's impossible. I do, because he's actually more valuable to the only place he can come close to that contract is in LA.
Yeah,
because
Lombardi is so loyal, he won't get rid of him.
And he is a really important player in that room. So there's something, he does bring value to the team. Put him on another team, he doesn't score, he doesn't bring value. So although it's hard to sit there, his contract seems ridiculous, he is probably a little bit like Ryan Kessler, to the terms of, these contracts do seem ridiculous, but they're such. I don't know. Kessler might be different because Kessler isn't widely loved like Dustin Brown is, but there's a lot of different possibilities there. Before we go real quick, I want to talk about what I thought was one of the best games of the season. Man, the time went fast today. And that was the Red Wings Lightning game last night. I don't know if you get a chance to watch it. Did you watch this at all, Ty?
Yeah, I watched this and then I wanted to rewatch it on Game Center, and they said no. So.
Right. Yeah, we won't get into that right now, but I know what you're saying. That's ridiculous. That's totally stupid. I can teach you how to get around that. But but it was a heck of a game.
Yeah. Playoff pace to it for sure. It felt like you were watching Game 8, of their first round series.
Yeah. And this is why I put the Red Wings right up there with them, and this is why I picked the Red Wings, because they are that good. They have so much talent. They have so much speed. They've got good goaltending as well.
Yeah, Abdelkader's got 5 goals already. I mean, I'm going to tell you something really important about Abdelkader. When they were in the Cup, and I forgot what year it was that I was covering it, after they won, I guess it was in Pittsburgh, whatever year that was in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. 08.
A lot of people were interviewing the current Red Wings, and I was interviewing some of their black aces, and Abdelkader was the first guy I walked up to. And that has a big effect on a kid when they're able to travel with the team throughout the whole playoffs, even if you don't play, and watch a team win and experience them win. And it's taken him a few years, but he's always been a talented guy. He was one of the best college players I'd seen in a long time, and now that's paying off. And we both said adding Dylan Larkin was like adding an all-star.
Period.
And he's got 2 goals. I think he's got 2 goals and 3 assists already. And there was someone yesterday who was wondering whether Dylan Larkin is going to be kept past the 9-game mark.
What?
I think it's fairly apparent that Dylan Larkin will be with that team for the entire year, no matter when Pavel Datsyuk comes back.
The question should be: is he going to be kept past the 900-game mark in Detroit? Right. Because he's going to be there forever.
Right.
Yeah, there's no question about it.
But yeah, I mean, Abdelkader is playing well. Again, with that team, the only concern I would have, I mean, up front, I think they're one of the most talented teams in the league. Defensively, I think they're still a little bit thin. They're doing this right now without DeKaiser. I mean, I know that Mike Green has played fairly well so far, but again, I think putting together what they'll need to add at the deadline, it's definitely going to. I think Kenny Holland is definitely going to concentrate on adding a defenseman because I think that's what their area of need.
And they have a backup goalie in hockey.
Yeah, they do, which is always important. Thank you, Nashville. And remember, guys, that's all the time I have today because I do have to get to my daughter's soccer game, which I wouldn't miss for the world. And then we're going to go to the Flyers game, which I also wouldn't miss for the world. I will see you there, Russ.
Yep.
And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. Tomorrow, Thursday, tonight, Ottawa, Columbus, Boston, Colorado. There's a lot of teams that can get things turned around tonight, I think. And Philly, Chicago. And Philly, for some reason, always plays well against Chicago in Philadelphia, so it should be a good game. Remember, Neuwirth is back in goal. Without the buzz, it's just hockey. Talk to you soon.